They say the desert never forgets a man's footsteps, but the desert tried its best to erase his. To this day, historians still argue over whether the cowboy known only as Calder Nash was a myth, a ghost, or something far more dangerous, something that existed in the corner of history where fact and fear shake hands. The records about him are scattered, conflicting, and unsettlingly incomplete, as if every person who ever tried to describe him hesitated halfway, deciding some truths are safer buried. But the stories that remain speak of a tall, lean figure always wrapped in a dusty black duster, riding a pale stallion that never seemed to tire. He appeared without warning and vanished without explanation, always leaving chaos in his wake. Not the chaos of reckless violence, but the chaos of justice delivered in ways too precise, too ruthless, too unnatural. Calder Nash wasn't a gunslinger for hire. He wasn't an outlaw, nor a lawman. Some say he drifted through towns like a judge in the shadows, punishing wickedness that the world preferred to ignore. Others swear he was hunting something, or someone. And every town was just another step in a pursuit too dark to name. Records from 1874 mention a nameless stranger who single-handedly stopped a gang of 12 bandits during a sandstorm so severe that visibility dropped to a few feet. Witnesses remember hearing gunshots, then silence, then seeing the storm part for just a moment, revealing a silhouette riding through the swirling dust, moving with an eerie calm as the bodies lay scattered behind him. No badge, no explanation, only the whisper. He's still looking. A year later, in a mining town called Dare's Step, a group of vigilantes tried to hang Nash after blaming him for a saloon fire. But when they tightened the noose and slapped the horse beneath him, the rope snapped. Not frayed, not loosened, but snapped clean apart. Nash fell, regained his footing, and stared at the men with eyes one witness, described as older than the earth beneath us. Nobody knows what happened next because every member of that vigilante group disappeared within a month, each vanishing on a different night without a sound. All that was found were their boots left neatly outside their doors. Historians still wrestle with the bizarre consistency of the accounts. Boots arranged like offerings, no signs of struggle, no tracks leading anywhere. The official investigations blamed wolves, feuds, even runaway desert tribes, but none of those theories explained why their rifles were always found empty, chambers clean, like someone had removed the bullets first. And every time, someone swore they saw a lone cowboy riding away just before dawn heading west. The deeper researchers dig, the more disturbing Nash becomes. The handwriting on wanted posters changed. Official statements were signed by officers long dead. Census records list him at different ages in different towns, sometimes older, sometimes younger, sometimes appearing twice in the same year hundreds of miles apart. One historian named Judith Mallory proposed the Three Nash theory, suggesting that several men used the same name and reputation. But days after publishing her draft, she withdrew her own work, destroyed every copy, and refused to speak of it again. When questioned, she simply said, "It's not the name you should fear, it's what follows it." What she meant remains unclear, though her colleagues noted she resigned from her position and moved halfway across the country the same week she burned her manuscript. She left behind one chilling handwritten note in her office drawer. "He keeps showing up." But perhaps the most disturbing account comes from a diary found in the ruins of a trading post near the Nevada border. The author wrote of a silent cowboy who arrived with a warning: "Do not stay here tonight." Don't ask why. The trader ignored him. At sundown, the diary ends abruptly with the final line: "I understand now." The rest of the pages were torn out. The trading post burned to the ground. No bodies were found. No tracks, nothing. Yet locals swear that weeks later, they saw a lone rider burying something at the edge of the canyon. And when approached, he said only, "Too late to save, not too late to stop." To this day, nobody knows what he buried. Archaeologists who attempted excavation found the soil unusually warm 2 feet below the surface. This in the dead of winter. And abandoned the dig. What was Calder Nash hunting? Why did he appear only when death followed? And why did he seem to be ages older in some reports than humanly possible? Historians don't have answers, but there is one unsettling truth that every account agrees on: he never stayed in one place for long. He always rode west, always watching the horizon, always scanning for something none of us could see. And the fear that grips historians even now comes from the suspicion that Calder Nash wasn't running from something, but trying to prevent something from finding us. If you're still watching, make sure you subscribe, because the next chapter digs into the event that made historians stop calling him a legend and start calling him a warning. The real terror surrounding Calder Nash began with what historians call the Night of the Seven Echoes, An event so strange and so well documented that even the most skeptical researchers admit something unnatural happened. It was 1881 in the remote settlement of Hollister Ridge, a place so isolated that mail arrived only once a month and nobody stayed long unless they were hiding from something. That night, a strange wind rolled in, silent, cold, and carrying a metallic smell described by survivors as like blood left in the sun. At exactly midnight, 7 gunshots echoed across the ridge, each one identical in sound, spacing, and pitch, as if fired by the same weapon with impossible precision. But the terrifying part wasn't the shots. It was the fact that witnesses swore the sound came from 7 different directions at once. The town woke in panic. Miners, drifters, gamblers, and families spilled into the streets, clutching lanterns, scanning the darkness. And there, at the far end of the main road, a figure on horseback appeared, Calder Nash. But this time, he wasn't simply passing through. He dismounted slowly, as if preparing for something inevitable, and though he spoke only once, his words were recorded by nearly a dozen witnesses who survived the night. "It's here." Nobody knew what was, but the terror in Nash's usually calm voice rooted the whole town in silence. Then the screaming began. People vanished into the darkness, their lanterns found still burning, their hats left spinning on the ground, as if ripped off by a sudden force. Some described seeing shadows move against the light, shadows that didn't match any figure, stretching and twisting like living smoke. One man, a blacksmith named Raleigh Tripp, claimed he fired 3 rounds into a shadow only to hear a voice behind him whisper, "Not me." He turned. No one was there. Raleigh left his anvil glowing red-hot and fled the town barefoot. Nash moved with eerie purpose, stepping into the center of the ridge, drawing a weapon that historians still can't agree on. Some say it was a long-barreled revolver engraved with symbols nobody recognized. Others swear it wasn't a gun at all. It was something older, something forged for a purpose lost to time. Whatever it was, the moment he raised it, the temperature dropped so suddenly that the lantern flames froze mid-flicker. Then the shadows surged like a wave. Witnesses said the shapes swarmed Nash, clawing at him, surrounding him, consuming him. But as soon as they touched him, they recoiled like they'd been burned. And for the first time in any documented account, Nash shouted, not in fear but in fury, as though confronting something he had chased across deserts, mountains, and years. "You won't have them." He fired a single shot. Just one, but the echo split into 7, matching the earlier gunshots perfectly. The shadows shrieked, a sound so unnatural it made several townspeople vomit where they stood, and then the shapes dissolved into the ground like spilled ink sinking into sand. The wind died. The lantern flames resumed flickering. Hollister Ridge fell silent. Nash holstered the weapon, or relic, depending on which version you believe, and walked toward his horse. Someone asked what had happened, what those things were, why they came. Nash paused only once and said, "You were never the target." Before anyone could question him, he mounted his stallion and rode into the darkness. The next morning, the townsfolk gathered to examine the scene, only to discover something chilling: 7 perfectly circular burn marks in the ground, each spaced exactly 20 feet apart, forming a pattern no one could explain. Soil taken from those burn marks refused to cool, even months later, leading scientists to discard the samples as contaminated. And every historian who examined the surviving eyewitness testimonies agreed on one thing: Nash hadn't been trying to save Hollister Ridge. He'd been luring something there, something he needed to confront, something he'd been chasing for years. But the detail that terrifies historians most isn't the supernatural speculation or the impossible physics of the echoes. It's what came after. Hollister Ridge emptied out within 2 weeks. People abandoned homes, tools, even livestock. Nobody wanted to stay where Nash had fought whatever he fought. But travelers, decades later, claimed to see a lone cowboy standing at the ridge at dawn staring at the burn marks. Every year, same day, same hour. And some insisted he looked identical to the descriptions from 1881. Not older, never older. That impossibility is what transformed Calder Nash from a legend into a threat. Because if he hasn't aged in over a century, if he still appears in the places where disasters almost happen, but don't, then maybe he's not just part of history. Maybe he's guarding something still unfolding. Something that hasn't reached us yet. And maybe the real question isn't why this cowboy terrifies historians, but why he seems to be preparing for something bigger. If you want to uncover the next part of this mystery, make sure you subscribe to the channel. More stories like this are coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.